Welcome to Scoop Order. It is Tuesday. Are there some major changes coming to Ohio State's football staff? It looks like that's the ones that are shifting right now in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. A lot of guys are sitting on pins and needles to see if they'll be back next year. We're going to bring you all of the latest, all of the innuendo, the rumors, the stuff that we've got. We've got a lot of good intel on this, so we're going to break all of that down. With that being said, as always, we appreciate you guys. If you guys enjoy this content, please give us a like, click subscribe, also click the little alert bar. Shout out where you guys are watching from. And I want to hear, what changes would you make on the staff? I mean, some of you guys are starting at the top with Ryan Day. The defense looks pretty solid, but the offense, there's a lot of question marks around the O-line, some of the other positions. So I'd love to hear your staff adjustments that you would make. Put those in the comments. With that being said, Nevada Buck, very spicy day today in the Woody Hayes. I think that the timeline is about 6 to 8 days away when the guys like J.J. Smith, all these guys that are mid-year guys that are coming from high school enroll. They want to have all the position coaches in place by then. I don't think we're on the same staff as we had this year. Your thoughts on what's going on, what potentially could be happening at Ohio State over the next 7 to 10 days?
Well, you touched on really, one, which is a really important point that cannot be emphasized enough. Ohio State's having a enormous number of kids enrolling early in this cycle, and they really want to have the position coaches in place, to the degree that they can, to the degree that's doable. They want to make sure that happens. That's one. But two, and I don't want to bury the lead on this, but all indications are that Ryan Day is going to be bringing in an offensive coordinator, a real person to call the plays, and that Ryan's going to move to a more administrative role. This was something that he himself talked about last year. Interview talked about how he wanted to step away from the play calling. That was coming off the Georgia game, which is kind of a virtuoso offensive performance. This year, not so much in the Cotton Bowl, and the pressure's kind of cooked up on him from up above. And when we say up above, we're talking about board of trustees, major donors, not the way above the AD's pay grade. And that's a change that we expect to occur. I don't have names yet, and what I typically would think when you see the names on the list of these guys, it probably won't be a name from the list of the top 10 guys. And we've talked about this before, but when Urban went to Tom Herman or Ryan Day, none of us had ever heard of those guys. So that's what I would expect, as opposed to like a Chad Morris or Joe Brady or whatever type of hire. But I do not have a list of the guys. I do have a strong indication. I've been told that this is happening. So buckle up. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the thing people have to really tune in on, is like a lot of times whoever shows up isn't somebody that's a brand name or some recycle coach. It's some young up-and-comer. It might be at a lesser program. Again, like when we hired Tom Herman, again, I've got literally first-hand experience of searching footballscoop.com and coachingsearch.com and all these sites where they would break all the information on who was coming to the staff. And like, I remember we hired Tom Herman and Ed Warner. I'd never heard of either of them. Like, I knew Tim Hinton because he was a high school coach in Ohio, and he coached, I think, tight ends on one of my all-star teams, maybe the Big 33 team. But I didn't know Ed Warner at all. I didn't know Tom Herman at all. Barely knew Zach Smith. Obviously, I knew his relationship with Urban and Earl Bruce and all that. But a lot of these guys they hired, man, it's guys that you've never heard of. So people like to build these big boards and these hot lists of who's the next OC, who's the next O-line coach, whatever. And a lot of times it's guys that come out of nowhere. And again, if you're doing this, if Ryan's doing this the way that, a lot of schools do it, if you're the head coach and you want to go get a big time brand name offensive coordinator, you have to give him some autonomy with the staff, which means, like Brian Hartline, I would bet my house is going to be back as our wide receivers coach just because of what he's done, what he's recruited, Jeremiah Smith, everything else. But, when you bring in a big time OC, he wants to be able to bring a couple of his own guys that he trusts and he knows. So that probably means a new O-line coach. It probably means maybe a tight ends coach, running backs coach, whatever. Brian Hartline, what he's done with recruiting and what it would mean if they whacked him, I don't think it's even feasible that we'd ever move on from Brian. But, for all the other positions, like, look, like when Luke Fickell hired his new offensive coordinator at Wisconsin, that guy brought his offensive line coach with him. He brought you have some lieutenants under you that you know and you trust and you're ready to roll with. So that's something that I don't think people understand is like when you go after a big time OC, he wants a couple of people under him. And again, I think Ryan was getting to the point where he actually be a head coach. Because again, right now, his problem is he doesn't trust Brian Hartline. He doesn't trust Justin Fry to call the plays, take the play sheet out of his hands. And, with Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer, a lot of the hatred and a lot of the vitriol get deflected from them to their OC. So people wanted Jim Bowman fired. They wanted Tim Beck fired. They wanted Ed Warner fired. They wanted basically everybody except for the head coaches fired because, the coordinators calling the plays on offense. And if they stink, that's where all the vitriol goes. But I think that this is a huge offseason for Ryan. I think he's very determined. I've talked to people inside the Woody Hayes saying it's different. It's a different level of anger, a different level of energy. And, again, this could be his last stand. I mean, he's got to go get after it and get the right guys in place. I mean, he's got to get the right guys on the bus, the wrong guys off the bus. And if you hurt feelings, that's fine. But he'd rather stay as the head coach at Ohio State than, get ran after this year. Because you can't have a performance like you did against Missouri on offense, especially on the offensive line, and there not be consequences. And Urban, I mean, he fired Ed Warner literally on the tarmac, like landing after the Clemson game because he's so angry. And, it was ugly and nasty. And, they ended up meeting at Urban's house and Ed, got whacked like the next day. So I think that, there's repercussions when you've missed on a lot of recruits and you've missed on transfer portal guys and you've been poor in evaluations on the O-line. So, again, that's what I've been told. I believe it. And I think that, there's a lot of anxiety in the Woody Hayes right now. Your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, well, no, I think for Day, it is his last stand. I mean, let's just be
Yeah.
clear. I mean, 2024 is his Waterloo, and
Yeah.
he's got to beat Michigan. He knows no coach. I shouldn't say no coach because then somebody will bring up some obscure coach from 1847 or something like that. But it's hard to survive at Ohio State losing 4 times in a row to Michigan, and for Ryan Day, especially coming off the kind of dominance and excellence that we'd seen from Tressel and Meyer before him. So for me, it's pretty clear he's got to make these changes. But again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, Ryan's really, really, really mad. He's got him on double secret probation now. Now this, but look, this is about self-preservation. Ryan knows that if he loses again, he's gonzo, and that's just the way that it's going to be. And he has to kind of make he's got to push the right buttons, make the right changes, and look, he's going to have a squad that's going to be right there to the end. He's going to have a super talented squad, and at some point, he's going to run out of assistants to fire because he's fired all the assistants, and it's like we kind of go through this thing where we blame maybe all these highly ranked players at Ohio State. They really weren't that good, and let's blame them. That's kind of where we are in the O-line room right now. We're blaming the players, and when in reality it's like, wow, it's either that all these players got super untalented, or we changed one thing. We got a new position coach, and then the O-line play went to hell. So it's like, yeah, I mean, to me, it's Occam's razor in terms of what's happening at Ohio State. And I think, for Ryan, I know he's a smart guy, and I hope he realizes. And from every indication that I get, the severity of the situation has been communicated to him, and I trust that he will act accordingly with the staff. And I think that means, like you said, very few people are safe.
Yeah, I totally agree. Nate Blevins, thank you for the 5 super chat. If you guys have super chats, you guys have questions, send those in. I'm glad Michigan won in the playoffs so far. We aren't. That way they could fall even further from when they get their punishment later this year. I hate Michigan. I don't ever want to see them win. I've changed my stance on that. Nevada, are you happy that Michigan won so that their penalty potentially could push them further from grace?
No, I don't ever want any of those people to be happy, even for a moment. And so today has been absolutely insufferable with all the Michigan stuff. And I'm praying for Washington to win next Monday. Um, I'm skeptical hippo about that, but Washington's been surprising me all year, so I hope they have one more surprise up their sleeves.
Agree. W Buckeye, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, brother. I would think that it's much more likely that VT did with Beamer go upper management in the AD department told Beamer you make changes or you're done. I think that, but I don't think Ryan has the kind of weight that Frank Beamer had. I mean, Frank Beamer kind of is Virginia Tech football, so I don't know if you can really say that he's a guy you can compare Ryan to, because Ryan, I mean, Frank Beamer took over Virginia Tech when they were in the doldrums and took them to like a national championship where they lost to Florida State when they had Mike Vick. He took them, beat Ohio State. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think he's got a lot more leash than Ryan Day does. Ryan Day, again, I have no vendetta against Ryan, but he was literally a nobody. He was on the breadline. He was unemployed when we hired him as the offensive coordinator. Chip Kelly, kind of convinced Urban to hire him, and he did good. We had a nice offense in 17, 18, and then all of a sudden, Urban is done after Michael Drake stabs him in the back, and it's like, well, who can we make as the next head coach? Well, let's make this young offensive wizard as our new head coach. And Urban was against that. Urban wanted them to open it up and have a full search, and Gene Smith was not. Gene Smith was like, nope, we're going with Ryan Day, and we're going to keep all these guys in place, keep Pantoni in place, keep Mickey Marotti in place. And I don't know. Was it the right decision? Maybe. Has our program fallen off since 2018? Yes. So, yeah, again, I mean, Gene made the call and he hired Ryan, and we've kind of spiraled downwards. We've had great quarterbacks, but that's been kind of like the ultra deodorant to keep us from really evaluating the program. It's like, oh, we were close against Georgia, we're close against these people, but Michigan has turned into a formidable monster over Ryan Day's tenure, and it wasn't like that under Urban. But your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, I mean, Michigan cheated for years, and so anything that we look at in terms of evaluating it relative to Michigan is really, I mean, just, and that's not being a hater. Like, for anybody who has any question about the Michigan stuff, just go back and read Tony Petitti's letter to Michigan, and it's got all the stuff in there. It's got it all. It's got all the stuff from the big. It's got all the stuff from the NCAA. It's all there. So this isn't, oh, Nevada Buck, you're speculating. No, Nevada Buck, Nevada Buck. Don't, just go read the letter. It's all black and white. Take 5 minutes, go read the letter, and tell me that they don't have them, because they have them. So that's that. Secondly, I will give Ryan credit for this. He fixed the defense. He fixed the defense. The defense was broken, and he went out there and got an adult and changed it. And, a lot of stupid people were calling for Knowles to be fired after year one, but thankfully those guys are quiet now. And Knowles is, I'm not saying the defense is perfect. There's still things we could do better, but we did pretty good on defense this year. I don't think our problems were on the defensive side of the ball. And so I think we fixed that. Now, I think Ryan's got to fix the offense, because the offense was great during the early parts of his tenure here. And then the last couple of years, it hasn't been great. And so I think Ryan's got to figure out where are the problems, what has happened in the last couple of years, i.e. Justin Fry, and what do I have to change? Because he's really the only thing that we've changed. I mean, Hartline's the same, Alford's the same, Ryan Day's the same. What has changed here? Well, we hired Justin Fry, and then what? Then we had problems. Well, okay. It doesn't seem that complicated to me. Where you should at least start looking at where your problems, especially coming off what I think we would all agree, without hyperbole, might have been the worst offensive line performance that we've seen from a good Ohio State team in our lifetime. Is that fair?
Oh, the Missouri game? Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
They, and I'm not biased, but I mean, they benched Carson Hins, but he started 12 games, fully healthy. No, he was not suspended. I've quadruple verified he was not suspended for that podcast. It was like, oh, he had this podcast where he was running his mouth. I was like, no, he didn't get. I mean, they never told him that. So again, they lock him out, and then they play Enoch, and Enoch He was a very nice kid, good program guy. Was terrible. He's the worst offensive lineman I've ever seen in a bowl game. Didn't deserve to be out there. Shouldn't have been out there. And the amazing thing with Ryan Day and Justin Fry is they never gave him the hook. Like he got out there. And here's the funny thing: is the year before, for all you guys that tune into Buckeye Scoop and BuckeyeScoop.com, Enoch started the Michigan game last year, and he was so bad, and he was so putrid, and he was so irrelevant that they pulled him after the first quarter, and they put Josh Fryer in at right guard next to Dewan. So that's how bad he was. But this year, he was actually worse as a fifth-year guy, which is almost impossible. But he was so bad, and they never pulled him. They didn't put Carson in. I mean, I would have put Carson at right guard or center, or I don't know Nevada. I'd have probably ran the O line that we ran the other 12 games where we almost were the number one seed in the playoffs. But again, we've got people that are so smart and so they're such gurus that they pulled that kid and they played a guy who had one career start, who had the worst game of his life in front of the entire world, and it was an abortion. It was terrible. And again, like I don't like when a kid isn't ready for it. And he's clearly not ready for it, and he's not up to the task. The fact that you don't hook that kid out of there and put someone else in is insane. It's crazy. So we'll go to Spook Jr. Thank you for the 5. Who are some of the up-and-coming OCs like Tom Herman was for Urban that are out there? I honestly don't know. Brady, the kid from LSU, is obviously out there. He's with Buffalo right now, quarterback's coach. That's the guy I'd go after because he's a pass game guru. But it's got to be somebody that Ryan trusts. And again, the problem with Ryan is, when you hire a bunch of interns, guys like Keenan Bailey that have never coached anywhere else, and, a bunch of guys that are just whatever, they're GAs or interns, and you make those guys full-time coaches, is like, they're not going to bring a lot to the table. Again, our tight ends are the worst blocking group I've ever seen in the history of Ohio State football. So, you got to go get some real coaches in that offensive room. Because if you look at that defensive room, I see this every week. Our defensive staff, we've got Jim Knowles, who's, 70 years old. He's been coaching for 50 years. Then you've got, Tim Walton. You've got Perry Eliano. You've got Larry Johnson. Then, if they have a brain and they fire Parker Fleming, they put James Laurinaitis as a linebacker coach. You've got a good mix of veteran excellence, guys that have been around the block, guys that they're not scared to stand up for what they believe in, as opposed to on offense where you have a bunch of interns who've never coached anywhere except for Ohio State. I mean, go look at the resumes. I mean, you can call me a hater, but go look at the resumes. Where have they coached at? Ohio State, intern for 7 years, and then QC for 2 years, and GA for 2 years. So they've been at Ohio State for 9 years. Then Ryan's like, oh, I'm going to make you my new coach instead of actually doing a search and getting the best guy for the position. So, the problem is you end up hiring a bunch of fanboys that are homies with the players and guys that really don't know what they're doing. And you see the result that comes at the end of the year where our offense really isn't great. And when you don't have the big deodorant stick that is CJ Stroud or Justin Fields or Dwayne Haskins, it really it's like the fruit comes out the bear. Because all of a sudden you've got a bunch of guys that they don't know how to fix things. They don't know how to pick up a blitz. They've never been anywhere else. And the one thing I know for sure with a lot of these interns that you hired as coaches, they're not ever going to stand up to Ryan and say, hey, Ryan or Coach Day or whatever they want to call him, this is wrong. Hey, we have to fix this. Hey, this is bad. Hey, this guy can't do this, because they're just happy to be there. Because again, we hire these fanboys to be coaches, and it's not great for the program. And again, you see how if we had an offense that was for real, like our defense this year, we flushed it down the toilet. We wasted a great defense this year because our offense wasn't real. Because you have a bunch of fanboys trying to coach these guys, and they're homies, and they don't really hold these guys accountable. And again, I showed you film of it. Make these guys block. Make these guys work hard. They don't work hard. They're soft. That's what it is on offense. Now, defense isn't like that. So people are like, oh, the team didn't show up versus Missouri. I'm like, go watch that defense. Tell me they didn't show up. Those guys were flying around. They played their asses off. Our offense, not so much. And again, it's because you don't have a great coaching staff around you, Ryan. So you got to fix that. You got to go get another Kevin Wilson, a guy that actually knows what he's doing on that side of the ball, who will actually stand up to you and make everything better. Your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's been one of my big complaints from the the first week of the year, if you guys are regular listeners to this podcast, I said from day one that it's really odd that we don't have an adult up in the room or have somebody up in the room on the offensive side of the ball with a coordinator title. All your coordinators, Hartline, Fry, and obviously Day, are on the sideline. And that is an issue. And I thought it was odd. I thought it was kind of unprecedented. And, I think, we saw that there's issues with that. And sometimes that can be a less than optimal setup. But again, I'm on to 2024. I've turned the page, and I have really, really good sources telling me that this is not only going to change, but it's going to change soon. So, I hate getting into timing because we talked about timing is always dicey, but I think this is going to happen sooner than later.
I agree. Sue, appreciate you. You're on here every night. Thank you so much, Sue. Does Day want to make these changes, or is he being forced to? It's both. I mean, he's being forced to make changes because what we've seen on the field has been unacceptable. But he wants to keep his job. I mean, he's making $11 million a year right now. Live in Columbus, Ohio. It's a nice living, nice standard. And if he finishes next season like this season, he's going to be looking for a job. I mean, he might be in the NFL. He might be an OC somewhere, but might be a lower level college coach. But he's got to get it right. I mean, again, our team has been regressing, and I think we have a bright future. I think we have a lot of guys coming back. There's a lot at stake next year, and Ryan knows that. Again, if you look at the metamorphosis, like the perfect correlation for me is look at Jim Harbaugh. Like 2-3 years ago, I mean, they forced him to take a 50% pay cut. So he went from making $10 million to $5 million, had to fire his entire staff, brought in all new guys, changed everything. And now they're like at the mecca of college football. Like Sharon Moore was a nobody, and he hired him, made him the O-line coach. And I remember the day that he hired him, I was like, he's hiring a guy who's never coached O-line in his life to be the O-line coach. And he's hiring this guy and this guy. But with his program and his alignment, it worked. And I'm telling you, like, Ryan has to get to the point where he gets guys that are on his page, that are aligned with him, and all of a sudden he becomes like, what he needs to be. Because again, the problem with Ryan is he has nobody that pushes back on him in the entire building. And he likes it that way. Like on offense, like he has a bunch of guys that are happy to be there and they're fanboys and they don't really work that hard. And the results on the field show it. And then on the defensive staff room, those guys play as hard as I've ever seen anything I've ever seen. And it shows. So, like at some point the offense has to start handing up or holding up their end of the bargain. And I think that when you look at what you could do if you had a real offensive coordinator, like a real voice, like if he in some cosmic world could hire like Kevin Wilson or a guy that was a name brand guy that wasn't going to take gruff from Ryan, Tom Herman. I worked with Tom. Tom didn't take anything from Urban. I mean, there was a little bit of, you get chewed a little bit from Urban, but Tom wasn't scared to have conviction and stand up to him. And this is how we're going to do it. And we're not going to huddle. Urban Meyer hired him, and Urban Meyer for his entire career of 20 years in coaching had huddled every single play on offense. And Tom's like, we're not going to huddle. We're going to go no huddle forever. And he had to have a dissertation with Urban. This is why we're not going to huddle anymore. This is the advantage that it brings us if we don't huddle, how fast we can go, the things we can do. And Urban's like, all right, I'm in. Let's do it. And we did it, and it changes the game. So again, Ryan has to get some guys like that and not a bunch of guys that are just interns and janitors that he hires that have no new ideas. They've only been in the Woody Hayes. They've only been interns there. They would never dare oppose Ryan because, again, a lot of these guys are overpaid gym teachers and they're working at the Woody Hayes right now, and they need to get some real coaches in there that can actually earn their salaries and make the team better. And that's the problem with Ryan. It's like he hires a bunch of guys that they'll never question him, and it kills us on offense. And again, you saw how everything dissolved as we actually played real teams. Like we played Michigan, it all dissolved. We played Missouri, good SEC school, it all dissolved. Poopbeard 12, thank you for the 5. How do you guys feel about Perry Eliano? I think he's fine. I mean, I don't worry about our back end. Our back end was pretty good this year. It seems like safety play / recruiting has been mediocre. Not exactly what you want in a safety-driven defense. I think Perry's been fine. I mean, I don't really worry about our back end. I mean, I think our defense is deep, strong. Next year will be really good. But again, I'd love your opinion on that, Nevada. But I I don't really worry about anything on defense, but love your thoughts.
Yeah, I just don't have too many. I've always believed you are what your numbers say you are, and you look at that defense and you're like number 2 in scoring, 10 or 11 points a game. I mean, when you're only giving up 11 points a game through an entire season, that's really good. I mean, that's really, really, really good, and that's up there
Yeah.
with some of the great defenses of all time.
I mean, it's
So
literally second in the country.
yeah,
So
so
scoring defense.
it's hard for me to just kind of pick on too much wrong with the defense or too many, and frankly, it was kind of it goes to kind of that gut test. Like when other teams went back to pass, was I sitting back going, "Oh no, they're going back to pass. Somebody will be wide open," and I was like, "No, throw it up." I like them putting it up there because I think our best chance is when they put it up because we had guys that would go out there and make plays and make something happen. So no, I feel really good about the defense. But I want to just make one point on one thing some you said earlier, and we had a coach say to us, "It's so good coaching now under Day as opposed to under Meyer because Meyer used to be so much harder and it's so much easier to coach under Day." We had a coach say that to us. So it's like,
No, literally said it was so much. I had to work so much harder under Urban Meyer.
yeah,
Now it's like nice and easy, and I'm like, I was
wow,
like,
yeah,
God,
yeah,
why did you say that to me? Like, don't say that
yeah.
to me. Like, I don't know how easy life is, and everyone makes more money, and we work way less, and it's way easier, and it's more fun and more relaxed. I'm like, dude, like, I mean, I worked for Urban, man, and it was like you earned every penny you got when you worked there, and I literally made pennies when I worked for him, but I was good with it. It was fine.
But that's all I got on that particular question.
Sean Creek, got the 5. Should we stop asking about Will Howard? No, I think he's locked in. Pete Nakos, who's Ryan Day's cousin, reported that he doesn't even have a meeting scheduled with OSU. No, I mean, Ohio State told Devin Brown at the bowl game that he was coming here as a silent commitment. So they said that to him before the game started. So I'm not worried about Will Howard. Now, again, could there be some massive, crazy NIL deal from Miami that could take him? I don't know, maybe, but I mean, it's been locked and loaded. I mean, Ryan Day met with him 3.5 weeks ago in Dallas, and then he was at the team hotel. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've seen crazier stuff, but Nevada, your thoughts on Will Howard?
So what did you said? Pete Nakos had called him to Ohio State. Are you saying that Pete Nakos came out and said that he's not coming to Ohio State? Is that
No, Sean says that Pete Nakos reported he doesn't even have a meeting scheduled at Ohio State, which doesn't make any
I,
sense.
I don't even know what that means. Here's what we know. We know that he met with Ryan Day. We know we've been told that it's done. He's coming to Ohio State, and we know that the players have been told that he's coming to Ohio State. And as prima facie evidence of that, just look at his last 9 follows on
On
Instagram or
Instagram,
whatever.
it's all
Yeah,
Ohio State players.
it's all Ohio State players. So it's like every single one of them. This is recent. This is like in the last 24 hours.
Yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, so either he's just starting to follow Ohio State players up and down his thing, or Nevada and Kirk are just dreaming this one up, and we just pulled a name out of a hat. But no, I think it's done.
Yeah, if I pull a name, I'll have him say like Caleb Williams or something. I'm not gonna say Will Howard.
Yeah, exactly.
I never heard of Will Howard until someone told me, "Hey, watch out for this Will Howard guy," because it looks like that's the guy that Ryan Day's honed in on. I was like, "Who?" Will Howard. I was like, "I don't watch Kansas State football." Russ Atkins, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you, brother. Did I read that James Laurinaitis was not sure right now that if he wants to be a full-time head coach? I think he would be perfect if he is ready. Wherever you read that, if you read that on somewhere where we actually pay to read information, cancel that. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And whoever wrote that should be fired, and all the subscribers should cancel, because you didn't read that on Buckeye Scoop, because James wants to be a full-time coach. James wants to be the head coach at Ohio State one day. So, like, he is not just hanging out, making, $100,000 or whatever he gets paid as a QC to just chill. Like, he wants to go get it. Like, he wants to go be, like, again, James Laurinaitis is better than Brian Hartline in every facet of everything ever. And so, when Brian is making, $2 million as an OC, and he's the greatest recruiter of all time. James is better than him at everything. So why would he not be a better coach on defense? And why would he not be a better recruiter, a better developer? Because he's that guy. James is a captain. He's a 3-time All-American. So, James doesn't want to sit around and make, $5,000 a month, just moonlighting as a coach. That's what he wants to do. He did the color commentary thing at Big Ten Network for a little bit, did it with Fox Sports for a little bit, and he got into coaching, and this is what he really wants to do. And again, he left his best friend, Marcus Freeman, who probably would have made him the linebacker coach last year if he had stayed, to come back home to Ohio State because his family's here. By his family, his wife's family, Shelley's family is here. It's easier on her. Because again, coaching is a murderous task because you basically neglect your family. You basically give up your family to go be a coach. So, when her family's all here and they can help out and hang out with the kids and whatever, it's just way easier. But James absolutely wants to be a linebackers coach, then a D coordinator, then a head coach in a very quick time. And again, he's not a spring chicken either. he's 36. So it's not like he's some, 22-year-old trying to figure out what he wants to do in life. He's 36. There ain't no turning back at this point. But your thoughts on that in Nevada?
Yeah, James definitely wants to be a coach, and James would love to be the head coach at Ohio State someday. And as you said, he's not he's young, but when Ryan Day got the head job at Ohio State, what was he, 40 or something like that, or 39 or 41 or something like that?
He might be 30, 38 or Lincoln Riley was 34 when he beat Urban.
Yeah, so it's it's one of those things where I think for James, he wants to get on the fast track. He wants to be here, and I think he's got a bright future here, and excited to see him on as accountable coach.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you for that, Russ. The Mountain, does Nevada ever come to Ohio? Maybe once every 3 to 5 years. You were here last year.
Dude, I was there all summer. Why?
But no.
You were like, oh, I'm not available.
Okay, so when was the last time you were in Ohio before last summer? Am I right?
Hung out with Joe. The summer before that. Oh, in your face, Bert Carton.
What? For camp? Okay. So before that. So before that. Before that.
Face,
17,
the summer,
right?
The summer before that.
No, you weren't.
Bert Carton.
You can't.
Oh, dude, you went from every 5 years to this summer.
Well, you were there 17.
You know who came out and hung out with me? Joe Drain came out and hung out with me. I saw Joe Drain.
I know.
And that was
good.
That was really fun. And then the one before that, I was out there hanging out there, drinking my Gatorade, eating my Chipotle out there on the quad.
You didn't even have Gatorade. They didn't have Gatorade for you. You're eating dry Gatorade.
The summer before that. The summer before we had
Gatorade. But this summer, did you have Gatorade or did you just have to walk to the Tiger Mart and go get Diet Cokes for all the girls?
We didn't have anything. We had nothing.
Yeah, Chipotle. They can't have Chipotle with no drinks. They're eating dry chips, dry salsa. But before, 17, you came in for the Penn State game, and then you came in for 2-3 days for camp. Okay, yeah. All right, fine. Yeah. Well, why don't you just get Ohio ID then? You want to use my address? Yeah, there you go.
Accuracy matters, man. Jack Reacher always says that. Accuracy matters in an investigation.
Yeah, so does Chipotle with no drinks. That matters too.
It does.
Tim Humphrey, thanks for the deuce. Why don't you do it, Kirk? Coach the O-line again. I don't want to. People ask me that. I think it's hilarious. It's great. There was a time I wanted to do that, but I like my life too much. I like my security. I like having my own house, building it out. It's great. Coaching is awesome, but again, there's a good chance that our O-line coach could be getting whacked, and I'm not about that life. Taco Killer, thank you for that 5. Your sources also said that there was going to sign a quarterback. Is that still happening? Zach Smith says that they haven't talked to a quarterback. Well, I love Zach, but I know they've talked to Will Howard. I've got that on fantastic terms. But again, a lot of times they like to lie. That's part of what they do is they don't like to always tell the truth. But I've got a good source that says they already told people on the team. Again, Will Howard has followed Trey Henderson and Jerry Radzinski's kid. 10 random people from Ohio State. So it doesn't make it
I mean,
Mason Maggs.
Josh Padilla, Mason Maggs, Austin Stierwalt.
Luke Montgomery. I'm like,
Exactly.
he's just randomly following
No,
these
he's
guys
picking names.
for the hell of it.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, you know whose follower account on that too is Josh Padilla. He's got 17 followers. I'm gonna be big sparkling number 18.
There's 16 Padillas in me. It's like, come on.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, and again, here's the thing, and I love Zach. They can say, because this is the classic ingenious of all of it when you're tampering and you're doing all this stuff in the back alleys. Like, oh, you can say, oh, it's like Urban Meyer saying, I never spoke to Ohio State until the day after the Michigan game or the Monday after the Michigan game. I'm like, yeah, your contract had already been written and negotiated and dried and signed. And, oh, I didn't talk to them until, I'm like, dude, you were talking to them in like July. I mean, so again, the thing that's cool about, being able to like have like, your little serfs out there, your little agents around there. It's like you can use plausible deniability and say, "Oh, I never talked to them ever." It's like, wait, your peoples talk to their peoples. Like, so it's like when Ryan Day wanted to hire Will Muschamp or Mark D'Antonio, he didn't call those guys. He had his agents talk to their agents. Hey, would he want to come up here and say of our defense in 2021? Oh, I don't know. How much money are we going to pay him? Ooh, we'll pay him $1 million for 8 games. Ooh, let me call him back. Like, that's how it works. Like, that's how big boys do work. Like, it's like with a Bagman network in the SEC before there's NIL. It's really sophisticated. It's not like, Kirk, the Bagman, walks over with a big bag of money and hands it to Michael Orr and says, hey, come to Ole Miss. It's like, no, there's sophisticated ways that they do stuff. And again, when you're not, and again, Zach knows it as good as anybody because he lived it. But, if the coaches didn't talk to these guys, for some of these guys, they might be getting fired. So probably doesn't matter who some of these positions are. Coach Matias 6 for the deuce. Looks like cheating works. Everyone should do it. Michigan's about to win the Natty. Your thoughts on that, Nevada?
I mean, look, I think they were. I mean, I know they were desperate. They felt they had to do what they had to do, and yeah, it's hard to argue with that. But cheating works until it doesn't, and eventually, on all these things, the party's great when the champagne's going and the girls are walking out with the sparklers and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden the lights come up and the lights and stuff, and you're sitting around and you're kind of going, wow, and that pretty girl that was sitting in your lap is just handing you a bill for $12,000 and saying
20% of that is mine.
Tips not included. Can you put a little extra on there for me?
Yeah, 20% auto gratuity. So that 12 turns into about 17. You're like, oh, yeah. It's a service charge for $2,000 for me walking out and uncorking your bottle. No, we've lived it. It's not fun. Russ Atkins, appreciate you next to the 5. I wrote on Scoop either Oracle or Competition had it. That might have been Oracle because I think I remember reading that where he said James isn't sure if he wants to be a coach. Well, and I love Oracle, and this is a great way to prove that me and Nevada are not Oracle. Is that I've got a way better source on James Laurinaitis than Oracle does.
But here, this is, and you and I talk about this all the time. The point is, people have different perspectives. Like Kirk and I could go to this very same practice and watch the exact same players, and I might go, man, that guy sucked. And Kirk might go, wow, Nevada, I totally disagree. I thought that guy was super awesome. But we're sitting in the exact same spot looking at it. And that's why you try to get different perspectives that have different sources and different information. And he may believe that. He may have information that says that James is contemplating this or trying to do that, or there may be some nuance to that. But yeah, it's the beautiful thing about having different perspectives and different viewpoints, and also proves beyond the shadow of doubt that, along with his Nicole Auerbach adoration, that we are not the Oracle.
You talk about me, Nicole Auerbach?
You're
such a hater. She is a giant thoroughbred horse-like human being. She's like Pegasus. Like she got like the legs and the big old teeth.
Oh God.
I think, but no, like I said, I don't know. Like I think James. Here's the thing. I would bet everything I'll ever make in my life that James wants to be a full-time coach. Like James Laurinaitis, who's played in the league for 12 years and made, tens of millions of dollars, does not want to sit around and be an intern making coffee at the Woody Hayes anymore. He actually wants to go on the road, make an impact, grow his portfolio, and I think he'd be dynamic in it. Again, James is, of the guys that I have the highest reverence for that I played with, him and AJ Hawk are at the top. Like just perfect, good teammates, smart, played hard, tough, selfless. Again, there's very few that are in that class, and him and AJ are at the very top of the list. Scott Workman, thanks for the deuce. Well, Scoop and Zach with Menace work together more. Whew, the whole world might explode. I love Zach. Zach is my boy. I just wanted to show out and show some love for him at Yogi's when he has a little deal. I'd love to. Again, I think Zach does a great job. He's got a substantial setup. I think him and Chris are great. I'm glad he's working with Torg now. It's a very nice setup that he has. But Zach's my guy, so I'd love to do more with him. So make sure you shout him out in the chats and say, hey, we're ready to rock. Because I was with Zach when he was at the doldrums of his life and he's getting kicked and beaten to death. And I was like, dude, screw all those haters. You're going to be okay. M. DeLuca 907, thanks for the 10. Appreciate you, brother. Based on the technical stuff you evaluate in film review, does our coaching staff not see it, or are they coaching it this way? For example, the missed G block, the O-line play, what is the gap? I don't think they emphasize it. And again, like when I was a grad assistant, now mind you, a grad assistant is like being a secretary. You are literally making copies and going and you're making copies, you're making coffee, and you're picking up like takeout food and getting oil changes. So you do any stupid menial task there is. But when I had a chance to coach, I was like, look, guys, this is how we're going to do it because I've done it and I know how to do it. And I'm going to teach you guys how to do it. And this is the right way to do it. And, when I watch like Alabama, who's paying Eric Warford $1 million to coach the offensive line, get beat on a backside hinge. Because again, like, I know that there was a bad snap and Milrow like picked it up off of his kneecaps and he ran right into the butt of the center. But like the right tackle, who was a first team all SEC guy and made some first team all American notice, got his ass kicked. And it was really bad. I don't like to swear, but it was that bad. And I'm like, I've made that block 5,000 times in my life. And it's crazy that he was that lazy in that moment of overtime when they needed it the most. He was high, he was lazy, and that wasn't a hard block. But that's the culture of that room. Like you have to be able to make that block. And that's not a hard block to make. And there's some blocks on the offensive line that are wicked hard. Very hard. Like if you got to go reach Aaron Donald, he's playing 3 technique and you're a guard, like you better eat your Wheaties and buckle your chin strap and pray to Jesus and God and Allah and anybody else you can pray to, because that's going to be a tough block. But a backside hinge versus a guy who's, and again, they showed edge pressure. They had a linebacker walk up on the edge, which basically gives away the fact that the defensive end is going to slant inside. So if you have a brain and you see an edge pressure, the guy's going to slant inside. So you can basically like fortify the dam and stop that, which is what I would have done and what my guys would have done. And you can hammer that guy and you can get him on an angle and crush him. And JC Latham like stands straight up like a fat turd, like a fat lazy turd, and gets destroyed. And it was one of those, like for a backside tackle, it's the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen, is getting put on your butt by a backside slant on power. Now, again, I could break the film down, but go watch the last play of the game. Tell me the right tackle. If you tell me that right tackle is playing hard, then I just know that you don't know anything about football or life in general. The G Scott stuff, again, our tight ends suck at blocking. And again, and our perimeter guys do. It's not just our tight ends, our receivers suck at blocking too. And that's part of the culture. That's part of what Ryan Day needs to fix. It's what, if I'm a new offensive coordinator, I'm coming to say, hey, you know what, guys? All you pretty guys that wear your Louis Vuitton bags and you wear your Christian Louboutin shoes and you paint your nails and you get your eyelashes done and you get your, whatever. I'd be like, you guys to start blocking now and playing like real football players instead of playing like this trash I have to watch now. Because I don't like watching that. Because again, when we were really good at running the ball, our perimeter guys could block guys. And again, if you want to get explosive runs and explosive gains, you got to block the edge, man. And like our guys don't, because that's allowed. And that's a problem with the culture of the program right now, is that we're not tough. We've gotten soft. We allow that. and I think it's despicable, and I think it kills guys like Trey Henderson because people are like, oh, Trey Henderson sucks and our offensive line sucks. We can't run the ball. I'm like, well, when we do block everything up, because I showed you examples on film where we blocked everybody perfectly versus Missouri, and our perimeter guys sucked, and they were lazy and they didn't give effort. They didn't block anybody. So again, and you guys can call me a liar. Go watch the tape and tell me I'm wrong. Your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this many times. I mean, that's when people talk about toughness, and it seems like this kind of this intangible, type of thing, or this buzzword. But those are the little things that we're talking about, and it's when wide receivers or tight ends don't finish their blocks, or aren't enthusiastic blockers, or aren't willing blockers, or aren't willing to sacrifice themselves.
You are muted. He will come back. Scott Workman, thank you for the deuce. Can you sell some Scoop merch? Yeah, we're gonna open up a store probably in a month or two, and we will send you guys a link. So I appreciate you. Again, our Scoop merch is it's pretty fire. It's a good time. Chris S, thank you for the 5. Did you guys see Connor Stallings at the Rose Bowl yesterday? If that really was him, that pick, that's unbelievable. It was him. I mean, he was sitting there with Chase Winovich, and it is what it is. And, they didn't really respect anything, but that's, again, they don't, it's just thumbing the nose at everybody that he showed up and was a big part of the production. Nevada Buck is back. Ian Bates, thank you for the 5. What up, Curtain Dog? So much I hate to say it, RD is reminding me of Charlie Weiss. Quirky personality who believed in his own genius. Thoughts, OHIO. I don't know if I want to go there yet with Charlie Weiss, because Ryan was, like a play away from winning the national championship last year. But, he's got to, stop smelling his own farts, and he's got to start getting some guys around him that actually know what they're doing. I think that, again, when you surround yourself with people that don't know what they're doing, it doesn't work out great. I think you got to get some guys that are like again, losing Kevin Wilson was devastating for that offensive room because he's actually a real guy that knows what he's doing. He's been around the block. He coached at Oklahoma, played at North Carolina. He coached for Andy Walker. Kevin Wilson taught Urban Meyer how to run the spread offense, which is what he became devastating with at Bowling Green in Utah and Florida. That was Kevin Wilson. Taught him that when he was with Randy Walker Northwestern. Urban went up there and clinicked with him, learned the whole deal, is what it is. And none of the great coaches in the world are coming to clinic with the guys that we have on staff right now, the interns that we've hired as full-time coaches. So that's the difference. You hire a bunch of guys that have never been outside the Woody Hayes, they've never been outside of Ohio State, and you don't really grow. You don't have anybody that's going to stand up to Ryan. Your thoughts, Savannah? Does Ryan Day remind you of Charlie Weiss?
No, he's had too much success. Charlie Weiss really didn't do anything. Ryan's had some. It's not like Ryan's been devoid of success. Ryan has just kind of got himself into kind of a groupthink on the offensive side of the ball right now, because what you have is a bunch of guys that know what Ryan wants to hear, and nobody's there to challenge him, so they just all kind of nod their head and kind of go ahead with the Ryan Day plan, and that's problematic because think about the businesses you guys run. And I know a lot of the people that are listening run businesses or high ups in business. You know what I'm talking about. If you don't have people that can give you legitimate discourse and challenge and have legitimate debates about things, then you don't go anywhere. And I think that's where Ryan is on the offensive side of the ball. But again, to his credit, he fixed it on the defense. He wasn't afraid to go out and find a real adult. And when Kerry was kind of struggling, and he went out and found Jim Knowles, who is exactly what you want in a defensive coordinator, an experienced, crusty guy who's going to take care of all your worries about the defense. Now go do the same thing on offense.
Well, and that's the thing. The thing that gives me confidence in Ryan is he's not scared when he sees that there's some major changes that need to be made. He's not scared to go make them. So you want to look at his history since 2000. I don't know. Let's go back to 21. After that Oregon game, he's calling Will Muschamp, who's at Georgia. He's calling Mark D'Antonio, who is retired, and offering them to come and sit in the room, kind of take over the DC role eventually, shepherd Kerry out of the thing. And, Ohio State was upset we went with that, but we had that, and that was dead to rights. So when I saw Ryan, I was like, holy cow, this guy's going after Will Muschamp and Mark D'Antonio. Like he is not playing. Like, it's funny because like on the defensive side of the ball, he's going after like A-listers, like A-plus listers, the best defensive coaches in the country. Where on offense, he doesn't do that, which is weird. And then, he ends up getting Jim Knowles, who's the top defensive coordinator in the country at Oklahoma State, Pearls Award finalist. So, like he's got it in him. Like, like last year he went after Drake May, who's going to probably be the first or second pick of the draft this year to be his new quarterback. And Mac Brown told him to stand down. Hey, leave my quarterback alone. And because I think Ryan knew that he didn't have it with Kyle McCord and Devin Brown. He's like, I need to go get me a real quarterback. So he went after Drake May. And he's kind of doing that now with Will Howard. He's like, I don't know if I like what's in that room or he'll get me a new one. So he's not scared to make changes, but he hasn't brought in fresh guys, fresh ideas on the offensive side of the ball. Because I think that he wants to, that's like his whoopee. He wants to control that. That's his mainframe. And he doesn't want a bunch of fresh new ideas flooding into there when he can't really control it. So again, I think it's going to be interesting. This is going to be a fascinating week before these mid-year guys get here, because I think that everything's going to go down in the next 7 to 8 days. Quinn Tucky, thank you for the 5. Would like to give some love to Kent Merker and Torg, credit for dubbing the transfer portal the transfer portalet. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of stupid if we get Will Howard out of it, because he's better than a portalet. I mean, I think you're trying to call it like a toilet, but some guys are, they're just in situations where they can go better themselves and go get a better situation. So I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. Sean Kricka, thanks for the deuce. Please tell Corey Dennis and Fleming they're leaving. Corey's contract expires. Parker got renewed last year for $500,000, which is the dumbest extension in Ohio State history. And Justin Fry is also up for renewal, so his contract expires in February. Nevada, do you believe any of them will be moving on?
I fully expect. Fleming is done. Dennis, I would say, is 90%. And I'd say Fry is kind of 50-50 right now.
Yeah, I agree. D. Sonny, thank you for the 5. Kirk, you've talked about how much you've learned from Urban. Can you give me an example of something he taught you that showed you why he was great? Well, the way we worked under Urban was so crazy and so insane and so persistent and so, it was like there was, the way not only we worked as a staff under his leadership, but how we worked our rooms. Like when we were the O-line coach and the O-line GA, it's like, oh, there is no 20-hour rule. We're working 6 days a week. These guys are coming in twice a day. You're testing them. You're teaching them the offense. They're doing extra cardio to get less fat. I mean, it was literal insanity what Urban Meyer did. And again, I loved it because I was like, I can't get enough of this. This is great. I was like, whatever it takes to make us not be 6 and 7 anymore, I'll do. I didn't care. I remember it was a Sunday. It was the NFC Championship game, and I remember the Giants were playing the 49ers. I'll never forget this for the rest of my life. And I came into the building from like 7 on a Sunday when we weren't supposed to be there and you weren't required to be there. I was there from 7 to about 3. And I sat in the GA's office and I was getting a little bit of work done. But I was just kind of there just in case they needed anything. If Urban or Volt or Pantone or any of those other idiots needed something, I'd be there. And so it's 3 o'clock. I check out and I was like, well, no one said anything to me for, I don't know, 8 straight hours. So I'm going to go home and go spend some time with my then wife and chill. So I get home and I'm exhausted because I'd been there since 7 a.m. or whatever it was. And I fall asleep on the couch and I wake up and I've got like 17 text messages from Brian Voltolini and all these other morons that work there. And they're like, oh, you have to come make a tape board now at 8 o'clock at night on a Sunday in the staff room to make sure that we have a recruiting board ready to go for the Monday meeting. And I'm like, I sat there for 8 hours. You guys never said a word to me. And all of a sudden, I fall asleep during the NFC Championship because I'm exhausted. I come in and me and all the interns are in there making this tape board, until 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday. And I'm just like, this is really what it takes. And again, I didn't mind it. I especially when it said something like the 8 hours that I sat there and was just like doing menial tasks. I could have gotten everything done and gone home and actually had like a life. But when we started and changed the culture, man, there was no life, there was no time, there was no clocks in the building. It was a grind. And Urban, The thing Urban was great about was alignment. He was really big on alignment. He said, look, if you're working for me, you only work for me. You don't talk to the media. You're not a snitch. Like, you're here to grind. You're here to work. And if you do that, I will take care of you. I'll get you the job you want. I'll do whatever you need to do. I'll promote you. I'll do whatever. And like, that was the thing about Urban is like, people knew if you could survive the crucible of working for Urban Meyer, he would get you paid. He would get you into that O-line job you wanted, that OC job, that head coach job. And that's why guys like Tom Herman wanted to work for him. That's why Chris Ash wanted to work for him. Like, they all came diving headfirst into the gates of hell because they knew they'd become a head coach one day, because that's what he did. He would get those ADs would call Urban about Chris Ash or Tom Herman. They'd be like, oh God, you got to call Tom Herman's superstar, unbelievable genius. And then like these ADs would just bend over and say, okay, we're hiring Tom Herman to Houston, or we're hiring Chris Ash to wherever, we're hiring to Everett Withers to James Madison. Like, I mean, it was like everybody became a head coach because of what Urban did. So that's why I liked working for him. Because I mean, I knew if I ever wanted to be a head coach, that's who you need to work for, and it didn't matter what you made at that time. But if he liked you, the world was your oyster. Joshua, thanks for the deuce. Does Urban still have any say at all in the Woody? Nope. It is all shut off. I think he goes there maybe once or twice a year, and that's it. But he is fully in Florida working for Fox, and I think that he's happy that he is away from football for good. Well, Nevada, good show. You want to wrap this thing up? Any final thoughts?
No, I think this is going to be an interesting week. I think things are going to be happening fast and furious. Um, this isn't going to be a long, drawn out process. Not the information we have is this stuff's gonna have to. They want it to happen soon. The timelines happen soon, so I expect to see things breaking shortly. So stay tuned.
I totally agree, and it's going to be fantastic. Thank you guys all for kicking it with us. Again, I appreciate you guys as always on this Tuesday night. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Again, if you enjoy this content, please leave us a like and click subscribe, and also click that little alert bell. Fantastic show tonight. Thank you for the great questions. Thank you for the super chats. About to jump on at buckeyescoop.com. Update some of these nuggets I got. I've gotten some more texts since we started. A bunch more text. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Again, if you are not members of buckeyescoop.com, consider joining, because our message board is absolutely on fire. It's a blast, and I would love to have you guys be a part of our community. So as always, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I'm going to talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.